Generationally, the 14700K is tied with the former flagship 13900K. It's within 1% of the 7700X, which is currently $300 to $330, and it's ahead of the prior 13700K by less than 2%. That is a shockingly disappointing lead for the 14700K over the 13700K, considering there are actually some differences between the i7s here. Just from this game, you'd want to buy whichever one is cheaper and not worry about the rest between these two. Users of the R5 3600 would see an uplift in the range of 80% moving to the 147, more so if you're on older Ryzen generations, but then you might as well get a 5800 XPD and keep the same motherboard. Your cost is way lower there. At 1440p, AM5 leads again. We're bouncing off of a GPU bind at the very top end, restricted by the 4090, as evidenced by the reduced maximum frame rate. The 14700K isn't quite there, instead ending up in a cluster with the 7700X, the 13900K, and the 58XPD, and most of the other high-end CPUs. Its lead over the 13700K is once again irrelevant, unfortunately, but this goes to show that even at 1440p, there can still be scaling with modern high-end video cards. Most of these are functionally the same though. The 7700X, for example, basically equals the 14700K. F1 2023 is up now. The F1 series has been in our bench for years at this point, and is another game that generally scales well across CPUs and GPUs alike, plus ray tracing inclusion makes it a good test candidate for GPUs. Looking at the 1080p results for CPUs, the 7800X2D leads once again. It's at 511 FPS average here. The lows are slightly reduced versus other CPUs, but not meaningfully. The 5800X2D is also in the upper echelon of CPUs here, hanging on to a podium finish with a 452 FPS average result. The 14700K results, though, place it down at 407 FPS average, ahead of the 13700K by 4.4%. We've never seen such exciting, massive gains. In fact, we didn't even know numbers went that high. The prior 1.8% differences, that's one thing, but 4.4? That's an incredible feat of technology.
And wow, it has been fun.
Intel is finally back to its full form. It hasn't had numbers this single digit since before Ryzen launched. Phenomenal.
You can literally see it.
At 1440p, the 14700K's mind-blowing technological prowess strikes even harder. This time, we're seeing a 4.1978609625668 improvement in average FPS over the prior 13700K. That's almost as many numbers as an AMD mobile CPU name. So they're doing something right. The results overall on this chart have come down, even those which were distant from the GPU bottleneck. You see that with the 5800X, which dropped about 20 FPS off the average from its 1080p results. The 14700K is functionally at the top of the chart though. It's hitting limits, as are the 7800X2D, the 7950X, and other nearby neighbors. Let's move to the next one. Baldur's Gate 3 is up now. This is brand new to our test suite, but we already studied it extensively in our GPU benchmark video. That video goes into detail on things like the GPU busy metrics for Baldur's Gate 3, plus some information on Vulkan versus DirectX 11, where we're testing within Baldur's Gate City, things like that. The standard deviation run for all our CPUs averaged out to 0.9 average FPS here, 1.4 for the 1% lows, and 4.1 for 0.1% lows. So Baldur's Gate 3 is remarkably consistent and makes for an excellent CPU benchmark. At 1080p with DirectX 11, the 14700K ran at 106 FPS average, slightly behind the 13900K, about 1 to 2% better than the 13700K. The 14700K multi-classing into more E-cores unfortunately didn't benefit it here. Like a mimic deep in Undermountain, the 14700K looks like the healing potion that Intel needs, until you realize you only get to roll 1d4 on use, and you have to subtract 1. It's not a bad CPU at all, but it's not a meaningful improvement, especially in this game. If you are buying Intel no matter what, the choice between the top 3 Intel performers doesn't matter in this game benchmark. The X3D CPUs, meanwhile, blow past everything. They're really impressive. This review has made us more interested, once again, in those than so far we are in this 14700K. At 1440p, the standard deviation is even lower for